How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. The moment I say that, people everywhere stop what they're doing, grab their popcorn, and find the biggest screen near them and get ready for a deliciously fun time. This is the perfect 10 out of 10 rom-com starring Kate Hudson, one of my favorite rom-com leading ladies. And honestly, we can take rom-com off of that. Kate Hudson is an excellent leading lady. Have you ever seen The Skeleton Key? And then, of course, my favorite rom-com leading man and Texan, Matthew McConaughey. Everything about this movie is fun, it's funny, it's romantic, there's so much to it, plus an original storyline. We've got a lot to get into with this week's recap, so let's get started. Welcome back to the Chats and Chill channel. I'm your host, SharionSade, and today we're going to be recapping How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Now, this is the perfect rom-com. Perfect 10 out of 10. It's got Kate Hudson, Matthew McConaughey, a lot of romance, very, very funny, plus an original storyline. So we have to recap this, but before we get into it, if you haven't already, please don't forget to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and please don't forget to share so that more people can find us. We open up the movie with Andy Anderson, played by Kate Hudson. She's sharing an article with her friend and colleague Jeannie that Jeannie loves, but reminds Andy is too political for Composure, the magazine where they work. Andy expresses wanting to write more challenging, hard-hitting pieces, but she's relegated to being a how-to girl. We then meet Benjamin Barry, played by Matthew McConaughey. He's riding his motorcycle to work at Warren Advertising, where he stops to greet his colleague Judy Spears, and then later Judy Green. They exchange a bit of banter that's really just thinly veiled sexual harassment.
Turn on tricks, how to make him hot. You know, if you want to try those out sometime, we should get
Green
together.
and I have an appointment at Composure.
We then catch back up with Andy Anderson as she's jumping into best friend duties with Michelle, who's currently hibernating after a bad breakup.
Only dated the guy a week. It was the best week of my life.
Based on Andy's earlier conversation with Jeannie, Michelle's breakups are frequent, and she's somewhat of a hot mess express when it comes to dating. In the Composure staff meeting, Lana, the editor-in-chief, shoots down Andy's political piece, and due to Michelle's lack of follow-through, presses the staff to utilize Michelle's ordeal for content, for which Andy volunteers. She wings it right on the spot and comes up with a how-to column that shows women what not to do when dating based on Michelle's mistakes.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Go.
In the world of New York marketing and advertising, we learn that Benjamin Barry is attempting to break out of the Joe Schmo accounts he's currently relegated to, and into the jewelry market, riding the wave of a new lead he brought to the firm by way of DeLauer's Diamonds.
This was my tip. My pitch, my account, my campaign. This is my baby.
Ben's boss, Philip Warren, wants to assign the DeLauers to the executives in charge of luxury accounts, Judy Spears and Judy Green, the ladies that Ben was hitting on earlier in the movie. However, Ben fights for this opportunity by crashing their dinner meeting at Mullen's Bar. He protests by saying he is savvy enough to sell diamonds because he understands women, the main demographic for the diamond market. The ladies challenge his assertion by daring him to make a woman fall in love before their party for the DeLauers in 10 days. He agrees, and the ladies decide to pick a woman right there in the bar. They land on Andy Anderson, who's there with her friends seeking a poor dud to drive insane for her How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days article. While Ben is none the wiser, the Judys are fully aware of Andy's motives due to their meeting with Lana at Composure that morning. It's the perfect setup for the ultimate crash and burn, and also the ultimate rom-com. After a night out where Andy leaves her purse to secure a callback, Ben retrieves it. He finds a pair of Knicks tickets, compelling him to send Andy several bouquets of roses to Composure. He calls to ensure she got them, and after a slight verbal sparring, she agrees to let him accompany her to the game. The Knicks game. The game starts off great. The two seem to be having a blast, kiss cam and all. And right as the fourth quarter of the very close game nears its end, Andy's games begin. She asks Ben to get her a drink, just as he's wrapped up in the game, the fourth quarter of the game, the last minute of the fourth quarter of the game. He reluctantly does it, but when he returns with her drink, she asks him for another one because this one diet. He goes back and misses the game-winning shot right at the buzzer. Ben is devastated. Andy, meanwhile, is having the time of her life. Sleepless in Seattle or New York? Andy goes full on Be His Peace 2025 when she calls him at work, interrupts his meeting, baby talks him on speakerphone, and then invites him to a movie. At the movies later, she doubles down by talking loudly throughout the movie, accusing him of thinking of other women, and then picks a fight with an actual giant.
Shut up! My boyfriend over here is gonna come back and pummel your ass.
That ends up getting Ben pummeled by Goro. They may have been watching Sleepless in Seattle, but Ben was knocked out cold in New York. Lamb with a cherry glaze and a side of Psycho. Ben prepares a feast. The one disappointment I have in this movie is not seeing them devour that lamb. Andy responds by redecorating his apartment with grandma doilies, stuffed animals, a baby love fern, and a whole new music collection, to which she performs a live rendition of You're So Vain by Carly Simon. As dinner is being served, a dinner Ben worked hard on, she pretends to be a vegetarian and asks him to take it away before she gags. Later, at the vegetarian restaurant, she finds excuses to continuously leave the table so that she can watch the Knicks game and eat a burrito with the kitchen staff out back. One of her excuses,
My boyfriend thinks I'm fat, and I can't eat in front of him. I can't eat in front of you.
my boyfriend thinks I'm fat. Princess Sophia. After dinner, they get into a pre-romp session where Andy names his trouser snake Princess Sophia. Ben contests he has had enough, claiming he needs a more masculine moniker, something like,
Hey, something like Spike, or Butch, or Kroll the Warrior King, but not Princess
what if
Sophie.
she just roll the Warrior King? She agrees, but it's too late. Ben informs her due to her previous knighting ceremony.
That momentarily abdicated his throne, okay?
Oh,
Yeah.
The pop-out and the pop-up. Andy pops up at Ben at work, unannounced, subjects him to more baby talk, a new Burberry shirt fit for a baby shower, which happened to be aptly chosen as she also brought the new addition to their family of 3, Ben, Andy, the Love Fern, and now Kroll the Warrior King, a Chinese Crested Annie bought for Benji. All of this goes down in front of his colleagues, much to Ben's embarrassment. I couldn't get a hold of you. That night after work, Ben gets home and is greeted by 17 missed calls and voicemails from Andy. And as if that's not enough, she pops up on him again. To what does Ben owe this pleasure? Andy's announcement that she'd created a family album for herself and Ben, and their 2 children. No, not the Love Fern or the Chinese Crested, 2 human children Andy created by digitally superimposing her and Ben's faces together. As Ben is slowly sinking into a visible horror, Andy doubles down on her delusion by informing him where she got the photos to use for their little album. She does this as she accepts a phone call at his house from his mom, who she'd reached out to earlier for the photos. Mind you, they've only been dating for about 5 days at this point. Ben looks like he's fit to be tied. Just as he's preparing to spiral, Kroll breaks the tension by peeing on his card table for the 2nd time. The first, at his job, on the pool table. As Ben is trying to get out of this encounter, he learns that Andy has also fully stocked his bachelor pad bathroom with her feminine products, and lots of them.
Oh, no, man, come on.
They are everywhere. He tries to lie to get her to leave, only for her to announce she had front row tickets and wanted to take him with her to the event. Assuming she means a Knicks game, he agrees, only to learn that she was actually talking about a Celine Dion concert. Ben thought he was going to a Knicks game where he would sit front row, but he was going to a Celine Dion concert in the middle of the week. Let that sink in. Benji, I'm home. Ben finally has a night off of being Andy's mental punching bag and relaxes into a boys' poker night. Pizza, cigars, poker, and Andy. Not just any Andy. Andy with a key to his apartment.
How'd you get a key?
Francesco, you're super. He made me a copy.
Francesco, huh?
She walks in, makes everyone eat cucumber sandwiches, ruins their poker game, and after overhearing Ben's jab at her mental stability, she storms out, successfully driving away her guy within 10 days. Or so she thinks. Ben is momentarily relieved until his friends remind him of the diamond account and recommends that he suggest couples therapy. He jumps down the fire escape, cuts her off in the street, makes his proposal, and she agrees. Pathological flirt, attracted to other men, rageaholic. They arrive at couples therapy, which is really just Michelle in a cult-like getup. After tag team tormenting Benny Boo 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 Boo.
We haven't had sex.
Oh no, Ben has a little bit of problem. Big problem.
I do not have
You have a problem.
Princess Sophia.
And when was it that you first realized that you were attracted to other men?
Rageaholic.
I'm not a rageaholic.
And you were a pathological flirt.
Jesus, 5 seconds ago I'm gay. You've got more than enough personalities to keep me completely occupied.
That was hurtful.
Ben suggests Andy accompany him to Staten Island to visit his family that weekend, to which she reluctantly agrees. Bullshit. Andy puts her antics on hold for the weekend as she's surrounded by the berries. Ben's family not only welcomes her warmly, but they accept her as one of their own. With her guard let down, she actually bonds with Ben, and despite her best effort to drive him away, they both fall in love. They return to the city, and as Ben is dropping Andy off at home, he asks her to join him at the party for the DeLauers as his girlfriend. At the ball, Philip gets a moment alone with Andy, where he realizes she is actually in love with Ben, securing the account for him. However, the win in Ben's eyes wasn't work-related. He's swept up at the thought of Andy being in love. Just then, Lana, along with her tiara and her big mouth, accidentally reveals to Ben that Andy is writing an article about how to lose a guy in 10 days, suddenly making everything clear to Ben. For Andy's final act, she forces Ben to sing for the party. However, Ben, never to be outdone, retaliates by having Andy sing with him because 2 angry drunks are better than 1. After they sing a charming breakup duet,
You fooled me to win a bet, and you should feel ashamed.
Look, you took me to a goddamn Celine Dion concert. You made me miss the big game.
No, Ben.
This is the worst thing I've ever heard. But this song's about you.
stressing the heck out of Marvin Hamlish, they break up in the street. I love a good street drama. I sit in my window and I listen. After turning in her article and getting her promotion, Andy learns the new opportunity doesn't come with freedom to write about the world's issues, and she quits. How to lose your job in 10 days. Throughout the entire ordeal, Michelle learns a thing or two about self-respect and boundaries, and she gets her man back on her terms. Ben reads Andy's final article, and he goes to win her back in the street, on a bridge on the side of the road. And they live happily ever after. I love everything about this movie, and I really love these characters. As a matter of fact, I wish we had more to this story. This movie is already a really great runtime, but I would have loved a sequel. Yes, I'm a tragic millennial who loves reboots and sequels. Sue me. But I love this movie so much. I wish we had gotten more from these characters, and I honestly wish we had been able to get a series. I actually wish we had had the reverse, kind of like Sex and the City became 2 movies, and then of course it came back as in Just Like That, but it was a show that turned into movies. I really wish this movie had been turned into a show, because what I wouldn't give to see Andy Anderson and Benjamin Barry have a will they, won't they for 4 or 5 seasons, and then end up getting married, end up having children, and we get to see all of this play out with their same supporting cast in New York City. This would have been an amazing show. And not only that, what I wouldn't give to see more of Ben's family. goodness. And his mother, I loved her. I loved her in Modern Family as well. She is just such a fun actress to watch. I'm obsessed with her. Every cast member in this movie is excellent, and I would have loved to see this story play out as a show as well. That's just my little gripe. But then also, as much effort as they put into these amazing characters, they did not waste any time when they named them. Andy Anderson, Ben Barry, AABB, let's roll. Or as Lana says, go. They didn't waste any time coming up with some really cool names. I like Andy Anderson and I like Benjamin Barry, but it just feels really short, really quick, just like we're giving 2 A's, 2 B's, and let's roll. They didn't even do like Andy Barry and Benjamin Anderson. Like they literally were like AABB, let's roll. And I like alliteration, but my goodness. And then of course, for Benjamin Barry's main colleagues that he interacts with, actually the impetus for him even making the bet in the first place that led him to Andy, Spears and Green, both of them have the first name Judy. They didn't even bother giving them 2 different names. And not only that, they got last names. Michelle and Jeannie and Lana didn't even get last names. But you know what? Use your time and resources and effort where it matters. We got an original script. We got amazing dialogue. We got an amazing story, very original. Not to mention the perfect rom-com. So they definitely put their resources behind what actually mattered, and I'm okay with that. And if that's my only gripe, then this is a perfect 10 from a movie. Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey have excellent chemistry. They've done a couple of movies together. They've done another rom-com, maybe 2 more rom-coms, I'm not sure, but I know they have another one. I think it's called Fool's Gold. I'm not sure, but they do have another one where they're looking for treasure, and they have great chemistry in that movie too. So obviously they were the 2 perfect leads, but in another universe, or maybe even in another movie, I would have loved to see Matthew McConaughey and Matthew Michelle play opposite one another as love interests, because they had some serious chemistry. As a matter of fact, she's the first character that Benjamin Barry interacts with in the movie in and of itself. She's the first person he speaks to, and he speaks to her and he's flirting with her. But Michael Michelle is an amazingly beautiful person. She also just has a very sexy way about her. Her voice, her whole aura, the way she carries herself. She just glides when she walks. Not only that, but she's playing next to Shalom Harlow, one of the most beautiful models ever. And I love her and everything she's ever ventured into with acting, but also runway. I love Shalom Harlow, but it's really hard to stand out in a scene with Shalom Harlow and Matthew McConaughey. Every scene Michael Michelle is in, I'm looking right at her. I'm listening to her. She's perfect in this movie, but also she's perfect opposite Matthew McConaughey, and they had some real chemistry, which I can't blame them, because if I'm Matthew McConaughey and I'm looking at Michael Michelle, it's a good day at work. And if I'm Michael Michelle and I'm looking at Matthew McConaughey, it's a good day at work. So they both had a little chemistry on either side, but I would have loved to see that flesh out a little bit more in another movie where those 2 were the leads as well, because they had some real chemistry. One of the things that I also love about this movie is that while most rom-coms take place at home, and we do get a fair amount of Ben's house, we really don't get a whole lot of Andy Anderson's home. We get a short clip during the compilation scene at the beginning showing all of her how-tos, but we don't get a whole lot from Andy at home. Andy is either out and about, at work, at Ben's place, or I think that's really it. Yeah, she's rarely, or at Ben's office. She's rarely at her own house in these scenes. We also see her at Michelle's house in one scene as well, but we don't see her a lot at home. What I do appreciate about the movie is that both main characters, their motivation was centered around their careers, so it makes sense that we would get a lot of scenes of them at work. Something that I loved about Andy Anderson's office place is that each of her colleagues actually had a personality, they had a bit of a story, and it contributed to her story. We didn't just have any bland, blank, stereotypical characters, especially at a women's magazine. We could have had some stereotypes playing out, and we didn't. We had Michelle, who was a pretty complex character. Yes, she was unlucky in love, and she was a bit insecure, but she had a heart of gold. And when she improv that scene, getting out of the taxi and walking into work, if I'm not mistaken, I remember the director saying that dialogue there was actually improv. And there's a moment where you hear Kate Hudson say, "Let's just roll with this," to Jeannie. And that's an actual statement from Kate Hudson to the actress, because none of that was scripted, or most of that was not scripted. Most of that was actually improv, which makes perfect sense. That actress is amazing. But aside from that, one of the things that I love about Andy's workplace is that each character has a story and a personality. You have Jeannie, who's the straight-laced, upwardly mobile person. She kind of has the in. She's not unlucky in love. She kind of just seems like the one that has it all together. Even if we don't get the backstory, we quickly gather what type of person this person is and how they contribute to Andy's story, as well as her eventual love story. I do wish we had gotten a little bit more from Jeannie. We don't get a lot of her love life, but what we can gather quickly is that she is not unlucky in love. She gets it. She's at that bar and she's just kind of like moving in between the crowds. She doesn't look insecure. She doesn't look like she has any hangups. She looks like this is what she does. She looks great. And then on top of that, you have this whole vibe of her at work that she's just in the pocket. Now, we saw Lana come down on both Michelle and Andy, but we never saw Lana interact with Jeannie in that way, nor did we see her come down on Jeannie. Something tells me Jeannie is solid at work. She never really seemed like she had any angst. And every friend group just has that really solid person that's just always like, I'm good. And then you have Michelle, who's kind of the anxious type, which is why I chose this book, Attached, because of Michelle. That's kind of the whole reason this movie came to be, at least on Andy Anderson's side, because Michelle is unlucky in love. She definitely has an anxious attachment style. She doesn't really get what she's doing wrong. She comes on very, very strong. And it's very clear that she somewhat suffers from low self-esteem. She made the comment about herself being fat. She didn't get what was wrong. She said that after dating someone for 1 week, it was the best week of her life. Ma'am. It's also apparent she doesn't really know how to, or at least she doesn't, count her blessings. She's beautiful. She lives in a wonderful city. She has an amazing apartment, very beautifully decorated. She has excellent friends. She's gorgeous. She's in shape. She works at this amazing magazine and she works with her two best friends, and she has a great boss who gives her leeway even when she doesn't perform. She has a wonderful life. She just doesn't have a man. So, but for Michelle, that's everything for her. And so we have Jeannie, this very secure person who's just vibing. And then you have Michelle, who's all over the place. And then you have Andy right in the middle. Andy clearly has desires. There is a little bit of anxiousness around her work. She wants to do something more. She wants to have more impactful, meaningful work. She wants to put out pieces that actually shift the culture, or just start conversations that shift the culture. She wants to be part of what's going on in the world, and she wants to be part of the positive change, and she wants to use her writing to do that. But she's stuck being Andy Anderson, the how-to girl. Now, there is a way for her to do both. Now, as Lana gives her the opportunity to move up in her career by making her how-to article a must-read, she partakes in that. But when she ultimately gets the promotion, she doesn't take it because it does not include writing about politics or world issues. But you're at Composure. You have to work with what's working. Now, this is in 2003, so blogs weren't blogs. Like now, Andy Anderson would probably just have a side job as like a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer, or she would just write articles freelance for other magazines that she can get those thoughts and those opinions out into other more appropriately placed magazines. And she could still do her full-time work at Composure, and then she could write for the Times or the New York Post or what have you. She could get those opinions out. But instead, it's kind of all or nothing for Andy. And when it comes to your career, I can't really judge her for that. Who wants to do something that they're not passionate about for the majority of their day and then leave the thing they're passionate about as a side job? I get it. I wouldn't want to do that either. And so while I do understand Andy's anxiousness around work, I would have loved to see a little bit more pacing and a little bit more of a reasonable approach. When she was offered that promotion and she walked out, I'm like, Andy, girl, you can still interview. Clearly, you have a lot of leeway at work. You don't have to be at your desk all day. You're allowed to kind of work on the go. Girl, go to that interview in Washington and don't quit your job until you have a new job. Anyway, it's a moving. But still, I was like, take the promotion. Keep making the relationships, the connections, and the networking. And then when an opportunity presents itself, strike. But don't be ridiculous. Anyway, I like the three of them. Not only were these characters perfectly casted, I feel like these characters were perfectly written into a friend group, because I could actually see these three types of women being friends in real life. Not only that, and I don't know if it's the New York City backdrop, but I love the characters in this movie so much. Not even just Andy and her friends and her colleagues, but Ben, his friends, his colleagues, and his family. I would have loved to see this turn into a series. Not only that, but we also got more from Andy's boss and Ben's boss. Philip Warren seems like a fun person to work for. He's reasonable, he's a tough boss, he expects a lot out of you, but he also does not mind being creative and giving you opportunities that you fight for. Because if I had been Philip Warren and I sat at that table with Judy Spears and Judy Green, both of them wearing their diamonds, both of them beautiful, alluring, and both of them in the luxury market and have been for quite some time, literally leading the luxury market, and then Ben shows up and is like, I can make a woman fall in love with me. Can I sell your diamonds? I would have been like, Ben, if you don't get your ass out of here. But you know what? There's something to be said about this too, because the way corporate is set up, if a man asks for anything, especially if he has a male boss, he probably is going to get it because, misogyny. So there's something about being on Ben's side in this movie that doesn't really sit right with me, because imagine being Judy Green or Judy Spears, and this is what you do. This is what you do 100% of the time. You know luxury. You don't have to prove yourself because you have proven yourself and you just get it. But because a guy was like, I can make a woman fall in love with me, I'm a whole misogynist out here. I can control women just because I'm that hot. And honestly, with Matthew McConaughey saying that, is it wrong? Anyway. Imagine being Judy Spears and Green, who've made a whole career out of selling luxury items and clearly doing a wonderful job. And a guy just coming in and being like, Phil, my guy, I can get in the ladies' panties. Let me have this account. And he's just like, I'll consider it. Hell no. I would have been pissed. It's like misogyny at work, but it's a movie, so we go along with it, obviously. But that's one thing that always kind of sticks out to me. Like, imagine that's what you do full time. And then a guy just walks in with an excellent head of hair and dimples. And what were we talking about again? Hell, maybe Philip did make the right decision. I don't know. Lana might be my favorite side character. I don't know. Lana is a wonderful character because the way she is Lana in Lana's world, and you better get out of my way. It's all about Lana all the time. And if I'm the editor-in-chief at Composure, you damn right. Lana was at the Diamond Ball for the DeLauers. She was the only one in a tiara. Even Mrs. DeLauer wasn't wearing a tiara. Now, she was wearing a fierce red wig. She was wearing that wig and dress. I love Mrs. DeLauer. But I loved Lana wearing that tiara. And I loved that she was walking around just kind of living in her element. The party was not for her, but you would not have known that if you weren't already aware, because clearly Lana thought the party was for her and it was her night. Now, when she was walking around talking about the Composure reader and she said, uppity, you bet. I said, you know what, Lana, sell your magazine. I don't blame you. Network. She had it in the bag. I love me some Lana. Now, she had me rolling. I have to make one more note about the night at the bar when the entire movie kicks off, when the plot begins, and you have Ben trying to get ahead at work, and then you have Andy looking for a guy to be her fall guy for her How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days article. All of this kicks off at Mullins. There's this moment where this guy just catches a stray.
Same guy next to the horrible guy in the green shirt that I would never even consider. Okay.
Now, mind you, flip it. This man is at the bar, hoping a lady comes up to him, or maybe hoping to go up to a lady if he can build up the strength. And some random woman just completely eviscerates your existence for no reason, when she could have just said the guy next to the guy in the green shirt. She had to add next to the the guy in the green shirt, who I would never consider. Not him just catching a stray. Kate Hudson is no joke. I love her. She just like her mama. She gonna be honest and speak her mind. What do you mean? The next thing I have to point out is when Andy takes Ben to that vegetarian restaurant and they're eating that barley, and the waitress, I believe, is like cleaning tables, and Ben goes, do you know the score of the Knicks game? Ma'am, no would have been just fine. That scene makes me want to uppercut her so bad because I cannot stand unnecessary rudeness, because no would have been quicker, faster, and less rude. That heifer gonna turn around and say, do I look like the type of person that knows the score to a Knicks game? And I love that Ben was like, no, you don't. I said, oh, he's shady. But right, girl, you could have just said no. What's wrong with people? Like, what? Genuinely, I cannot stand people. I see this whole dialogue on TikTok about the Gen Z glare or the Gen Z stare. And I have seen that when you go into like, any establishment and you're like, hello, and they just look at you until you say what you want. I think that comes down to training, though. While that is weird and it's rude as hell and unnecessary, if you're going to do a job, do the job to the best of your ability. That's just kind of how I'm wired. I've been in customer service for a long time. I've had wonderful customers and I've had horrible customers. The thing that didn't change was me. And the days where I needed a moment, I took the moment. What I didn't do was make one customer pay for another customer's issues. I went to work and I was excited to be alive and at work and having fun. And I like customer service, so maybe that's part of it. But that's also part of it. I got a job that I enjoy. There's that. So I enjoy working with customers. I enjoy helping people. And so when people would walk up and say, hi, I would beat them to it. When someone walks in, I'd be like, hey, how you doing? Boom. If they didn't speak back, they didn't speak back. I don't give a damn. That wasn't about them. It was about me. I like welcoming people into this establishment. And it's part of the reason why I was hired. So why not? It costs nothing to be polite. So yeah, I have encountered some of those customer service people who are just like, it's rude, but also that says a lot more about your trainer and your manager than it says about the actual person, because you're in that position and you should have been trained to do that job. I've had customer service representatives who weren't polite and I just helped them with that. I was like, hey, you got to try to find something to connect with. You don't have to be their best friend, but your demeanor should always be a warm and welcoming demeanor. Hello. Don't wait to see if they say it back. Don't judge them whether or not they respond, whatever. You're here to help them. So just say, hello, how are you? Thank you so much for coming, or thank you for calling, and get to work. You don't have to love it, but you should be welcoming. That's part of why you're here. That's on the manager. So Little Miss, do I look like the type that knows the score of a Knicks game? She probably owned the spot and she had the freedom to do that, but I hope they never went back because ain't no reason to be rude. We over here buying your barley. We could have got this shit on the sidewalk. This ain't nothing but a bunch of grass. Anyway, I could not find the director's cut. I'm going to have to buy the DVD on Amazon probably. But I remember watching the DVD when I used to have it, and I watched the director's cut because that's always the best version of a movie. And I remember the director saying that he got a little creative when it came to putting the Knicks in the NBA Finals, because this NBA Finals series was in 2003, and the Knicks hadn't been to the finals since 1999. Now, they've been a total of 8 times, and they've actually won twice. But in 2003, they had not been. And he got really creative. So you could tell he was a Knicks fan, and that's okay. I'm all about it. I used to be a massive Heat fan. Not so much anymore. I've kind of just falling away from watching basketball. It just got a little boring for me. But back in the day, from like 2005 to maybe 2017, I was just a huge basketball fan. I watched every season, every game. I had Sun TV, and I lived in Texas, so I could watch every Heat game because I just needed to watch. I loved it so much. And it was also fun making friends by like going out to the bars and like going to restaurants and watching and going to pubs, and like you make friends when you're cheering for the same team. And so the culture of being a sports fan is so much fun. But yeah, immediately when I saw that then, because when I saw this was in 2003, I wasn't into basketball, but like I've watched the movie a lot over the years. And so I think it was like around 2008, I was like, wait a minute, when is this supposed to be taking place? Because the Knicks in the NBA Finals? And I had to look it up, and I was like, okay. And then I watched the director's cut, and I heard him say, yeah, I got a little creative. So I thought that was funny, and I do not blame you. Root for your team. I have another little note about Ben and Andy. That first night when they go back to his place after they meet at Mullins and then they get some dinner, when they go back to his place, things get really hot and heavy, but then they both remember their motivations for even dealing with each other, and it's work related. Ben is trying to get the diamond account, so he has to pace himself over the course of 10 days. It always makes me laugh when he says, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. A 10-day marathon. Usually when people say 10 days, or usually when people say a marathon, not a sprint, they mean long term, like years long, or just this long period of time. 10 days is a marathon for Benjamin Barry. He knocks him down, does he not? Oh my goodness. And then you have Kate Hudson's character, Andy Anderson, and she's getting hot and heavy too, but then she remembers, okay, I need to dangle the bait, but I can't give it all away up front. I have to hook him first, make him want to date me, and then drive him away. It's the only way that the theory will work. And so they go into it doing what they normally do, and then they realize, oh, work first, and then they tune out. Something about this scene cracks me up, because before Ben remembers that his motivation is a marathon, not a sprint, he's ready to get down to business. He put on Hot in Here by Nelly. Not at a party, at his house with a date. I said, oh, he was getting ready to get serious. Hot in Here for a one-on-one date? He was about to make no bones about it. You know exactly why I brought you back to my house. It's gonna get hot, and it's gonna get hot fast, Kate. I don't know what I would do if I was at a guy's house and he was like, let me put on a little music, and he was like, so hot in here. I would be like, wait, what the hell? He didn't leave anything to question. Let me jump out this window right quick. He you about to make me earn my meal? I'm not ready for all this. Like, are you kidding me? Turn the AC on then. But he was ready to get down to business. That man put on Hot in Here, not at a party, at his house with a lady. He was not about to leave anything up to question. And then he decided to put on Let's Stay Together, I think by Al Green. I think that's the song he chose. And that makes more sense. But also, he was right on the nose. It's hot in here. Oh no, let's stay together for 10 days. Anyway, I love that scene because it just says a lot about the character Ben. And I don't know if Ben really knows women the way he thinks he does. I don't know if he knows women. I think he knows one night stands. I don't think he knows women because I don't know a whole lot of women who are wanting to have something long-term or planning to fall in love with a guy who would put on Hot in Here the first night at his house. I don't know. That's just a me thing. Now, this is more of a Matthew McConaughey question, less of a Benjamin Barry question. Now, in The Wedding Planner, Dr. Steve went through Mary's purse when he took her back to his hospital. And y'all know how I felt about that. In this movie, Benjamin Barry realizes that Andy Anderson left her purse at his house, and what does he do? He goes through it. That's now 2 for 2, Ben, or should I say Matthew? You went through Mary's purse, aka Jennifer Lopez. And now you're going through Kate Hudson's purse, aka Andy Anderson. Does Matthew McConaughey steal? Do you know how much of a turnoff that would be if I accidentally left my purse at somebody's house and they told me they went through it, even if they just said, oh, I knocked it over. But if they commented on anything that was inside my purse, he never would have gotten a second date. I would have gone and got my purse, counted my money, grabbed my tickets, and got the hell out of Dodge because he has a problem. Now wait, if it was Matthew McConaughey, I would forgive him. If you're going through my purse, it's me and you. Stay your ass at my purse. Especially if I got Knicks tickets. You don't know who those tickets were for. I could have had a little hot date with somebody else. You don't know. Anyway, something else I noticed about their first outing. When Andy Anderson first asks Ben for a drink, he brings her back a drink with a straw, no lid. Like I said, Ben doesn't know women. Because what woman is accepting a drink from a man she does not know? This is their first time going out together since the night they met. She's not accepting a drink from you. 2, she's certainly not accepting a drink without a lid. Not only that, and I get it's a movie, so it's fine. But the fact that Andy, when she was just toying with him and she asked him to go get her another drink, she drank that one. A drink with no lid on it. Girl, this was definitely 2003 because there is no way a woman would take a drink from a man she doesn't know now, nor a drink without a lid. That is a red flag. That's the reddest of red flags. Do not take a drink from a man you don't know. Do not take a drink from someone without a lid on it. And when he was running back, he was holding the cup from the top like this. He was holding it like this. Maybe it's because I worked in the restaurant industry. And honestly, I did this before I worked in the restaurant industry as a hostess, the hostess with the mostest. But you hold drinks like this, even like this, never like this. And you never touch the straw without the covering. But you hold it like this, all your germs on your hands are just falling into the drink. Ben! Ben! So gross. Anyway, something else I love about Matthew McConaughey being casted in both The Wedding Planner and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, my 2 favorite rom-coms, is that he does not leave his Texas at home. That man is Texan through and through, no matter what character he plays. I just watched part of a movie from the 90s. He was really young and he had a really nice buzz cut and he played opposite Drew Barrymore and his Texan accent was so thick. By the time it got to How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, it had definitely diluted a lot, but still.
Ha! You want to talk about shooting a man's horse? Wha!
I thought.
Well, you know what? I miss you too. Oh, no, I'm not. Why don't we catch a movie or something?
A movie, my choice?
Your choice. Crack-enhanced Kathy Lee Gifford.
Andy!
No kidding, a Chinese Crested. So it's like a dog, right?
He is Texas through and through, and I love it. I love that he does not leave that part of him behind. It's just part of who he is. When you're casting Matthew McConaughey, you know you're getting a side of a 10-gallon and a nice strong leather boot. I'm cool with it. Now, this is for my manifestation girlies. Andy Anderson might have been intentionally trying to drive Ben away, but she was manifesting marriage. And I find that to be so funny because recently, in the last 2 years, I've really gotten into Neville Goddard and Dr. Joe Dispenza and Abraham Hicks. And I've just learned a lot about manifesting and just how people approach manifesting. And when I saw her pull out that album, I said, yes, delusional, but also it worked. They ended up together. Like, it did work. She accidentally manifested that man. Go Andy. I love that part too. I get it. Go ahead. Another thing I have to point out is at the end of the movie, Andy shows up in what I think is the most beautiful formal outfit I have ever seen in a rom-com. I love that yellow gown. And I remember when someone from Laguna Beach actually replicated it. I think the lady's name was Taylor. I can't remember. But someone recreated that look for Laguna Beach, and I believe it was for prom. But I loved that yellow dress on Kate Hudson. She looked fantastic, and yellow is absolutely her color. Also, in these movies, they typically don't do yellow for formal. So I love, that was just such an original choice. Everything about this movie is so original. However, when she gets to the DeLauer's ball and Mr. DeLauer gives her the Isidore diamond, the necklace, they also give her canary yellow diamond earrings to wear. Now, when she and Ben perform their ill-fated duet and she runs out, they come and get the Isidore diamond. But she walked right on down that street with those earrings. And I said, yes, ma'am. She kept the earrings. It was an accident. And I'm sure at some point they did an accounting of everything and they got their stuff back. But that part always sticks out to me because she showed up without wearing earrings or a necklace. And then she leaves with 2 new earrings. Okay, then. I know that's right. If Ben had made lamb with a cherry glaze for me, all bets would have been off. I would have made up some kind of crazy ass story to write my article, and I would have taken that man and we would have been together. Lamb with a cherry glaze, and you look like you, and we're watching the Knicks game, and you have this condo, you living good. And you've got that accent. Oh, he would have had me. Benjamin Barry would have had one more woman to add to his roster because I would not have been able to hold back. I would have wrote some bullshit in that article and gave it to Lana and been like, yeah, go team. And I would have went right on home to my man. Key and all. Thank you, Rodrigo. That would have been my man tonight. Those carrots, everything about it looked good. He lit candles. I said, oh my goodness. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is still one of the best rom-coms ever made. It's such an original story. Perfect acting, perfect casting. The music was wonderful. I love that it takes place in New York City. I feel like any rom-com that doesn't take place in New York City, it's gonna have its work cut out for it because New York City is the perfect location for a good rom-com. And I'm saying this as someone from Dallas, and y'all know people from Texas love Texas. But New York is just made for rom-coms. It's either New York or Paris. I mean, you really can't go wrong with either of those. I don't think the movie would be as good if it were anywhere else other than New York City. I love that the city plays a part in the story. I also love this concept of 2 people trying to get ahead at work and that playing into not only love, but the way they operate with this new person that they're meeting and falling in love with. I think this movie has everything that you need to make the perfect rom-com. I also love that the movie ended with a reasonable conclusion. They're just going to actually try to have a relationship. It didn't skip us ahead 50 years and try to get them married or do anything like that. Like, it didn't force them into a permanent situation. It was just a reasonable, I'm falling in love with you and I really want to try to make this work. I love movies that have like reasonable endings and reasonable outcomes. I'm not a big fan of the big leaps of faith. I'm not a leap of faith type of person. I like things to be cautious and reasonable, but fun. Or as Lana would say, upbeat. So I prefer that in my stories. And I think this is perfect because it's a reasonable story. It's very realistic. Now, as far as trying to drive somebody away and them not actually getting the hell on, that's crazy. Ben definitely would have left her and he probably would have just made up something. Now, what I would have done if I were Ben, I would have just told Andy from the get-go, listen, I really like you and I want to get to know you, but I have actually been put in a situation at work. They're asking me to make you fall in love with me. I really want to get to know you and I hope one day you can. However, if you wouldn't mind portraying that you're in love with me, I would really appreciate that. I would have just kept it real with Andy and I would have said, listen, I'll give you 10% off the top when I get my first check from this. Like, when I get my commission, you get 10% off the top, girl. Like, this would have been a business transaction and love and lamb with a cherry glaze. Can't go wrong. But anyway, I love the way it played out. I love that our two main characters were semi-honest and they didn't try to manipulate the results of their findings by telling the other person, or else we wouldn't have had a rom-com. But leave it up to me and we wouldn't have had no kind of story, but I would have had my job. So anyway, so those are my thoughts on How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Let me know your thoughts on this movie as well as your feedback on this commentary. I'm excited to hear your thoughts about the movie. If you haven't already, please don't forget to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and feel free to share so that more people can find us. Also, if you're interested in checking out my recap of The Wedding Planner, that's up on the channel now in the movies playlist. That's all I have, and I'll see you next time. Bye!